Thank you everyone for joining today. We're going to get started. If you do have a question during the presentation, please put it in the chat and we will answer them at the end as time allows. Today's 108 Degrees Digital Marketing webinar is Storytelling with Email, Making Your Mission Resonate, led by Marianne Pfeiffer. Marianne is the founder of 108 Degrees, a certified women's business enterprise and women-owned small business with over 20 years of outstanding service to the business community, nonprofits, and educational institutions. She's also a MailChimp Pro partner and member of the Innovation Council with over 25 years of experience in email marketing and the author of Precision Email, 7 Lessons in Engagement Strategy. Today, Marianne leads our session as your marketing strategist, helping you plan your path and answering the digital marketing questions that will lead you to success. Without further ado.
Thank you, Lauren. All right, we're going to start with a quick survey today. When your emails don't perform well, what's your best guess as to why? The content feels too information heavy, or, oh, Lauren's already launched it. Fantastic. Our audience doesn't seem engaged. We're not telling a clear or consistent story, or we don't track what's working closely enough. So go ahead and vote if you would like. All right. So generally, most of us are feeling like the content is too information heavy. You're probably not wrong, but also we're not telling a clear and consistent story. And that is kind of why we're here today, right? Because we know the power of story and we want to take advantage of it. Stories are powerful. If you want your audience to remember you in today's busy world, you need to give them a story. Human brains find stories 22 times more memorable than facts alone. And emails with a narrative structure tend to see, and your results may vary, but 300% higher click-through rates. So if you want them to remember what you do, your business, your organization, your nonprofit, do it in email. Stories trigger emotional responses in us as humans, and that drives higher conversion rates. And that in email is what we care about. And we know for a fact, because we've seen studies on it, that story-driven emails increase brand recall by about 70%. So if you want results, you really need to think about telling stories in your email. Now, I just threw a whole bunch of data and facts at you. And now I'm going to tell you that data and facts are not compelling. It's true. How many of you who are here right now can remember the 4 facts that I just gave you? I don't even remember the 4 facts I just gave you because facts and data aren't compelling. It's storytelling that transforms dry elements, logical elements into a compelling narrative that we can remember and that drives action. So that might be why for some of you, your content might not be connecting with your audience. If you sell in the B2B space, if you sell things that are technical, if you sell things that are very logic driven, you're using that logic to sell, and that might not be the best way to be remembered. So today, we are going to review a storytelling framework that will help you drive email engagement and conversions. And my goal is that you're going to leave here today with a repeatable process for crafting story-driven email campaigns. Now, we're going to move fast. There's a lot to go over, so bear with me with the speed of this. You will get the recording for this later, the link to it, as well as the slides, so you can go back later to take notes. So sit up, pay attention, get your coffee or your Diet Coke or whatever you're using to stay awake, and let's dig into the anatomy of storytelling. So before I can tell you how to tell a good story in email, I need you to understand how we tell a good story in general. And in general, the one most people understand best is what we call the hero's journey. So the way the hero's journey goes is, once upon a time, there was a protagonist. Your protagonist goes on an adventure. They met some allies. They defeated the big bad, and everyone lived happily ever after. Now, this is illustrated very well in modern storytelling with Star Wars, so most of you probably recognize that. But did you know that's also the journey for Snow White and the Lion King and the Wizard of Oz and Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings and many of the great adventure stories that you see Hollywood making today? So the reason why they're making them is because they're popular and they do well. And what that means is that your audience really already understands the hero's journey. So when you use it, when you use that same framework, it will make the story you're telling more memorable. So when you're building your hero's journey, the most common mistake we see people make is that your organization is the hero of the story. You're not the hero. You know why? If you want them to remember it, you can't be the hero. They are the hero. Whether you're in a nonprofit and you're talking to a donor, or you're selling and you're talking to a customer, or just in general, you're talking to your email subscribers, they need to be the hero of the story. You're going to frame their contributions as heroic acts with measurable impact on their organizations. You need to position your organization as the guide. You are the one who is helping that hero, your customer, your subscriber, your donor, save the day and get to the happy ending by giving them the guidance they need to get there with your help. Now, your end goal is that you position them as the change makers in their organization. Why? Because when they're the hero, they get the praise. And especially if you're talking about a sales situation or any kind of situation where your hero has to make change within their organization and you've made them the hero, you've made them look great. They'll love you even more. Now, the hero's journey and how you use this in marketing is really the topic of StoryBrand. If you've ever heard of that, the StoryBrand framework was created by Donald Miller. So there's a link at the end of this to more information about that. If you really want to dig into the hero's journey and how to use it overall in your marketing, take a look at Donald Miller's work. But in the meantime, let's apply these things to email. So we know what a good story looks like. And we can understand that we are positioning ourselves as the guide, not the hero. Our reader is the hero. So what does this look like? This classic story arc in email. You're going to start with your hook. And your hook in email is your envelope. It's the thing someone sees before they look inside your email. That's who it comes from, the subject line, the preview text, anything that they're going to see before they even click in. And it's really important that you apply a solid hook in that envelope to get people to dig further. Now we're going to talk about context. So you've got about 2 sentences at best to set the context for your story. That often means that you are going to set your story in parts so that you don't have a big, long, droning on pages and pages and pages email, right? You may have to deliver things in parts, but that context, 2 seconds, and or 2 sentences. And the reason why I say that is that the statistics, again, a statistic, but the statistics for email is that you've got about 7 to 10 seconds that that person is going to spend on your entire email from start to finish, from the moment they click in their box and open it up till the moment they hit archive or delete and move on to the next thing, 7 to 10 seconds. And what that means is that you really and truly need to be efficient with how you are presenting your information. So after the context, you've got to get a conflict or a challenge in there as you're telling your story, and then some parts of the resolution. Maybe, again, it's not the whole thing. Maybe they'll have to go to your website to read the rest. But if they don't, make sure they at least understand the context, the conflict, and the resolution before they leave your email. And most importantly, let's make sure that your email has a call to action. I cannot tell you how many emails I get that tell me a beautiful story about where something started and the journey and the conflict and the resolution, and then they don't tell me what to do. So I just move on. That's not the result you want. You want them to visit your website, donate, buy, check out, download something, sign up for something. You want them to do something? Please tell them what to do. It is part of the story. As you're building your story, and we're talking about the anatomy here, you really need to have something that we call the before-after bridge. This structure works for everything, whether you are fundraising, launching a product, creating an advocacy campaign. What you're going to do is you're going to state the before problem. You are going to state the after state, what happened after the solution was implemented. The bridge is the thing that gets you from the before to the after. So understand that you can't just say, here's where John was and here's where John landed. The story tells us how he got from point A to point B. It's an important part of your structure. And what we found is that when you're using a solid before-after bridge in your storytelling, you increase your engagement by about 45%. That call to action that I talked about, that happens because the bridge is very clear on what someone gained and how they gained it through your product or service so that they then were willing to take action at the next step. Now, I want to take a second and talk about writing techniques that hook readers. Now, this is applicable outside of email as well. So other marketing content you're using can still use these things, but make sure your emails use this because again, brevity is the source of success here. And so you want to have solid writing so that solid writing will be able to get you to the results you're looking for in email. First, sensory details. When you are describing things, what did it smell like? What did it sound like? What did it feel like? When you touched it, was it soft? Was it hard? Was it smooth? Was it whatever? Sensory details create immersion. So think about how you can use those. Specific beats general. And this is generally in storytelling, but very much in email. You know, saying that in, say, a nonprofit situation, that we helped feed 10,000 people is almost too big for one subscriber to wrap their head around. Yeah, it sounds like a lot. Maybe it's impressive, but to say you fed a family today. So I donated $20 and then I get an email back that says I fed a family today. That's specific. And now you can tell me about that family and how they weren't able to eat because they couldn't afford their food, but how the $20 that I gave helped to buy food that went to a pantry or went to an organization that helped to feed them. I'm specific, and now people understand that. It's really important to use active voice, okay, as opposed to passive. Active voice means action is happening, and it's also great when you have a call to action to get people to take action. Keep it conversational as it applies to your brand voice, but keep it live and active and engaging. And remember, we talked about 7 seconds, 7 to 10 seconds, right? Short paragraphs, very short paragraphs. No more than 4 sentences in a paragraph, and short sentences in that 4 sentences if you even use that many, okay? Use the you versus the we. We is about me. You is about you. And again, our reader, our subscriber, is the hero of the story. So make sure you're talking to them about them and keep it tight so they can scan it quickly and then decide if they want to dig in deeper. One of our best tactics in email storytelling is success stories. People love to read a good happily ever after success story. So let's apply success stories to email marketing here. Now, there are some articles that I read. I read a bunch of them regarding like what was the results on average. Some of them said that your click-through rates can be 185% higher than average, which is a lot, but it's going to depend on the story you have to tell and how your program currently works. But just understand that real stories have power. So think about case study emails. These generate higher click-through rates than a typical email. And think about a testimonial. Now, you could use a case study with a testimonial, but you could actually have case study that talks sort of more third party about the organization, and a testimonial that's one-to-one with the person. And they really outperform the generic praise. You know, saying that we have 5-star reviews on Google is generic. Saying we helped Sarah and this is what she thinks and she gives me a great testimonial, much more powerful. We talked about the before-after bridge. Challenge, solution, results. This is another thing that you can use. What was the problem they faced? What was the solution you implemented? What was the result they gained? And always think about quantifiable incomes, okay? So we talked about data is not very motivating. It's not, but data does belong in quantifiable outcomes. We helped them increase sales by 33%. We sold 44% more of this particular product with this particular tool. Those quantifiable outcomes, when paired with a case study or a testimonial, that's where data belongs, because that's when you get really great results, because people remember that data as part of the story. So case studies, testimonials, these are all great, but where do you find them? How do you start building them? For some of us, this can be really, really hard. So let's talk a little bit about where we source them. If you do post-purchase surveys, if you do any type of customer service where you have interaction with your customers, if you have social media and you get response, start there. These are people who are generally raising their hand and saying, we liked your product. Maybe they really hate your product, but generally they really liked your product or service, and they're willing to talk to you about it. So start with some of those people. As you're structuring the story, before you talk to the person, start to think about what problem were they facing so that you can ask them, why did you choose us? What changed after you selected us? So that you can tell a great before-after story. always, always, always get permission and photo and video release up front. We have a lot of clients that we work with who say, my customers will talk to you, but they don't want to go out in the world. And I get it. It's hard to ask that of your customers. But I also know that every time we don't ask for the customer information, they always give us some really great nugget that we then can't use in a case study or testimonial later. So do your best to prep them and say, hey, is this going to be something that would be okay for us to use in some of our marketing? Emotional transformation is important. So functional benefits are great, but the fact that we helped, John increase his sales by 33%, good statistical, great data. But how about John was promoted to junior vice president because of his 33% increase in sales? That's an emotional transformation. That's a big thing for John. He got this huge lift in his career because of work that someone did for him. So think about how you can get an emotional transformation, something that's more than just the numbers. Testimonial emails need to be compelling. They really need to get people to want to take action. And that starts with the subject line. So the subject line isn't, we helped Sarah with her fundraising. The line is, Sarah's the hero, how Sarah doubled her fundraising efforts, how her fundraising results. So think about that subject line to be really compelling for the hero of the story. You need a solid opening. Okay. And quotes are a great way to do that. You can set your context in a lot of emails with just a leading quote at the top. Your body really needs to tell the complete story. And as much as possible, use your customer's own words. Now, a lot of customers are not particularly eloquent. It is perfectly okay to make their words more succinct and more eloquent, but try to keep it in the same context that they're giving it to you. So that way it feels like their story. Because the odds are the customer or the subscriber who's giving you that information is quite like other customers and subscribers that you're trying to convert. We're going to talk a little bit more about visual elements in a minute, but just make sure that when you're sending a testimonial, you have some kind of imagery. In the ideal world, I want a picture of the customer who's giving me the testimonial, maybe in a before-after image if it makes sense, or at very least a results screenshot. You want visuals that are applicable to that particular story, not just your product or service. And again, the CTA, make sure that you are telling them that if they would like to get the same results as this person, they should reach out to you today. If you don't tell them to, they're going to read the story and say, wow, what a great story, and move on with their day, move on in their inbox. Tell them what to do next. Now, as you are collecting these stories that are for your customers, it's important that we are ethical about it. So I'm going to take a minute here and talk about ethical storytelling, especially for nonprofits. In the nonprofit world, you are often dealing with people who are somewhat vulnerable. Maybe they had a disease, maybe they are dealing with challenges of poverty, whatever it is. Protect their dignity and privacy. They are vulnerable. It is your job to protect them. You do that by getting informed consent and explaining how you intend to use this story and getting their okay with that. Also, after you've written the story, and often we're going to be using these stories in multiple places. We're probably using them in email, maybe in a series of emails or just a single email, but we're also maybe going to share it on social media. Maybe it's going to be on our website. Take whatever is the most complete version of the story and let the subject of the story review it before you put it out there. Give them the opportunity to ask for something to be removed or reworded if they would like it. And it's really important that you focus on their resiliency, their agency, their choice to be part of this organization, this service, this product use, whatever it is. They are the hero, right? They are the hero. So this is about their smart decision, their agency, their resilience in being part of your organization. All right. Visuals are really important, and in email, no less than anywhere else. So I want to talk about great visuals in email. But I want you to first remember that a lot of subscribers have images disabled. So maybe they're using Outlook, or maybe they need a screen reader. So as we're thinking about visuals, always remember that there are some people who won't get them. So when you build your visuals, you need to build them in a way that they work for everyone. Human brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than text. So there's always a tendency to take your quotes and your graphics and all this and just make a great big visual image email, but it's a very, very bad idea. While emails with relevant images will see as 42% higher click-through rates, about 43% of subscribers have them disabled. Video thumbnails are fantastic. We'll talk about those in a minute as well. And they increase click rates almost double what you would normally see. But accessibility-wise, if you use Outlook, if you need a screen reader, if you need glasses to read, right? Some of those visuals are not going to be visible. So when you design them, you want to design them using alt text for your images. You want to make sure that if you're using a quote image, that you somehow repeat the quote either in the alt text or somewhere else, so it can still have the impact in your stories you want it to. Now, in a perfect world, none of us would ever use a stock photo, but there's a reason why all these stock photo sites exist. And so when you don't have a choice, try to be as genuine as possible. Even if it's not a perfect photo, we live in a world today where most readers would rather see something genuine that's not perfect than see something that was generated with AI. Show faces with genuine emotions. Take it with your phone. It's perfectly fine. Okay. Take a picture with your phone and use that. But try to show real human beings whenever you can, not just stock models. And capture moments of action instead of just portraits. Now, if the best you can do is get a picture of your client or your customer standing at their office or at their desk, that's fine. It's better than a stock photo. However, if you can get them in action, using your product, using your service, talking to their customers, working at their desk, whatever that is, that moment of action is going to give you much better impact in your email than just a still photo. Environmental context is important, right? So, if I sell software, the odds are most of my clients are using it on a computer or on a tablet or on a phone. So show that, right? Don't just show them wandering out in a field, okay? Because it doesn't really make sense. Make sense to what you're showing, to how it's being used, or the story that you're telling. I mean, maybe they're a landscaping company and you're selling software to them and they are actually out in the field and it's helping them manage on the job. Great. Have them out in the field, right? But also have them with their tablet or desk or laptop or whatever using that software so it makes sense. When we're optimizing photography or images for email, the column width should be about 600 to 800. Now, if you are putting things on Retina devices like iPads and iPhones and things like that, you want it to actually be double in size and it'll reduce to half when you put it into your email service provider. But always make sure that the size is under 1 meg. You'll probably have more than one image in your email. And so by keeping them all under 1 meg, you ensure that people can receive those images and they'll load in a reasonably fast time. And as I talked about before, alt text is critical for accessibility, but it's also critical for people using systems like Outlook, where they don't load images by default, or maybe their IT team does not load images by default. They let people look and then decide. So if they don't understand what's supposed to appear where an image is, they are less likely to actually download that and make the choice to see your images. So use descriptive alt text. So whether somebody can't see it or is unable to see it immediately, they are encouraged to understand what is there and maybe load that image. I get asked all the time, can I put video in my email? Can I put video in my email? I want to put video in my email. Video is awesome, right? And video works really, really well in social media. So why wouldn't you want it in email? Well, the reality is the technology doesn't actually exist today to embed video in an email like you would on your website page. But you can create an animated GIF. If you use Canva or one of these other tools, you can take that video and create an animated GIF that's a preview image, put the play button on it, and pop that in your email and link it to YouTube or Wistia or wherever it is that you're hosting your video, okay? And people will go directly to it. So that will allow you to create the appearance of video, especially if you know it's successful video, in your email that people are likely to click on. When you're sending video via email, typically we recommend keeping that video under 2 minutes. Anything longer than that, remember, someone was in the process of going through their inbox. And if you think of your own habits, you probably don't live in your inbox for 3 hours a day. You go to your inbox, you do what you need to do, and then you move on to your other software. Or maybe you go in and you work on one particular thing. But typically, when someone sees a video in email, the workflow for a typical user is to say, hey, I want to check this out. I click over to the video, a little bit of entertainment. Okay, now I'm back to my inbox. If your videos are too long, people aren't going to stay there. Always use captions and subtitles because 85% of video today, whether on social or on YouTube or wherever, it's watched without sound. And then when you're also looking at other types of graphics, you want to think about infographics and testimonials. Well, what do I mean by these? These are things like timelines, progress bars, impact meters, things that will take statistics and try to make it into a visual narrative that's more interesting for your user. Testimonial graphics are great. Always use your alt text. You can use a quote card. You could even use like a before after image or some kind of thumbnail, or social media screenshots are also great. But always remember to keep your designs simple. If you have a very complex chart, it's not going to render well in email. Remember, people are looking at it on their phone. It's the size of their hand. So if it's like a 12-column spreadsheet, it's probably too much for email. Create a simplified version and have people download or click through for more information, because very complex charts are not going to do well. Automation. Huge time saver, huge advantage in email marketing, and you can absolutely use it with storytelling in your brand. So think about the origin story. So often the origin story is something where we use it in a welcome series. And when we do that, we see a 50% higher engagement. Here's what an origin story might look like. First of all, the first email you send might be your founding story and mission, the why you're here. Then you could talk about the community that your subscriber is now a part of, the why they aren't alone in this. You can use one of your success stories, show them what's possible if they are partnered with your organization, and how they can get involved. Maybe you're a nonprofit and you're looking for volunteers, or maybe you are, an organization that has an online community. Whatever it is, how can they become involved with your product? Now, your automation could vary in the number of emails, but these are the elements that I strongly recommend, because these are the ones that typically work for most organizations, whether they are business to business, nonprofit, higher ed, whatever it is. Another type of automation is nurturing and conversion. This is what moves people down the funnel, and your storytelling belongs here as well. You can talk about progress updates and team stories, right? So if we talked about your mission and your once upon a time and why you were here, show behind the scenes how that is happening with your organization, with different departments, with different team members. You can lead nurturing with a transformation story, showing the impact of contribution. Okay, so think about how someone has moved through their transformation, and your story can be part of that transformation. Anytime we're nurturing, or really when we're trying to convert, we want to create urgency. So don't forget about talking to them about how the sooner you get on board, the sooner you can see results like this. And always include some social proof, testimonials, anything that tells people that they are not the first ones to try your service. We're running close on time here, so I want to give you an action plan, get you started with working on this right away. So let's talk about the story of your adventure today in learning about storytelling, and let's get you started with these action items. So once upon a time, there was a call. You recognized that your emails weren't connecting and you wanted to make your mission resonate. You learned a lesson through your guide, hopefully us, that discovered why you need to make your customer the hero and you are the guide in their place. Now you can cross the threshold. You have frameworks. We learned some frameworks today that you can turn your content into stories that will engage and convert. We hope that you will have some transformation, that you will leave this and you will have authentic, ethical stories that you can start to get results from. And that will save the day for your organization because you now have a repeatable process. So here's our story from today. Quick wins. First of all, go to your last 10 or so emails that you sent and see how many of them told a story and how many of them were just a bunch of facts, okay? And understand why maybe those facts weren't as informative as you wanted them to be. Go today or this week, set time with a customer, interview them, and tell their story. Remember, they are the hero, you are the guide. Go to your emails this week, any templates that you have, and get rid of a stock photo and put in one real photo of a real person, whether that's a customer or a team member or your organization. And finally, rewrite your next email subject line as a storyline teaser. Think about how you can use that envelope to draw people in. So if you can do all that before the end of February, or at least before the middle, you should see some pretty quick wins from that. And then in the next 30 days, here's how you can really help to evolve your email with storytelling. Develop some standard interview questions that you can use with every customer and start to build a library. Try to work it into your workflow process at some point in their journey. Where can you ask them those questions and get their permission to start telling those stories? hire a photographer or get someone in your organization to take 20 to 30 authentic photos, and consider maybe doing some video testimonials if you think that you're up for it. So again, 30 days, it's a little bit of time. You could get three. Three's not a lot. Now, figure out how to tell your origin story in 200 words or less. This is a really hard one for most organizations because we could talk about our origin story all day long, but you need to get it tight. Remember, 7 to 10 seconds they're going to spend on your email. So let's really make sure that we're using that time effectively. So I'm going to jump to 90 days here because I think you're going to do a little rinse and repeat with those. But now that you've made some headway, these are going to be your next steps this quarter. First of all, develop a campaign template with a consistent story structure and test it a little bit that you can use for all of your testimonials. So that way you can be sending out a testimonial regularly. I'd love to see 3 to 5 welcome emails that tell your mission narrative and engage your user and get them to remember your brand and what you do and why you would be important to them. And then using that campaign template, create your monthly customer stories, create these emails. Remember, ethical storytelling, get their permission, get the advanced okays from everybody that's required to. But every month, tell at least one story. And most importantly, establish some kind of metrics dashboard. We've talked about this in some of our other workshops, but it's really important that you're measuring what you do to make sure that it is clear to everyone in your organization the success that you're seeing from these stories. And that makes people much more encouraged to collect more customer stories and do more interviews. All right. In order to do all this, you're going to need some resources. So I have a few for you here. If you need to learn more about storytelling, as I said before, Story Brand Framework by Donald Miller, strongly recommend that book. When you get these slides, these links will go to the Goodreads for those and also to the respective website articles. Everybody Writes by Ann Handley is a great writing resource for any kind of writing. And then in terms of email resources, so there are all kinds of guides here from HubSpot, MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, and then some of our industry resources in email like Litmus and Really Good Emails. These are all things that can generate ideas within your organization and help you hone in on what can work for you. I hope this was good. Thank you for joining us today. If we have people who have questions, we can hang on for a minute. But next month, we will be presenting integrated campaigns, how you can use email, SMS, and social for maximum reach. If you'd like to sign up for that, it is on our website. We will also send you an invitation by email if you were here today so that you can join us if you would like.